You must have seen this little triangle while growing up. This is Monte Carlo, a 42-year-old apparel brand that started out of a small woolen mill in Ludhiana in the 1980s. Most of the brands from that time are gone today. Some went bankrupt, some got acquired by bigger giants, and the rest quietly shut down. Monte Carlo is one of those few brands that's still in business today. So the question is, in a market where old brands are dying and new ones are burning cash to grow, how did Monte Carlo do 1,300 crores in revenue last year with an 18% EBITDA margin? Which, let me tell you, is nearly double of what most of its competitors do. In today's video, we are going to look at the playbook Monte Carlo followed, the one that kept this brand relevant even after 4 decades. Let's start with some context. This story goes back to 1949 and it begins with Vidyasagar Oswal, a man from Ludhiana who started a small wool spinning business called Oswal Woolen Mills. For the next 35 years, the Oswal family quietly built one of the deepest wool supply chains in India, spinning yarn and making woolen sweaters that were unbranded and sold locally. It was finally in 1984 when Jawaharlal Oswal decided to step out and launch their own brand. They picked a name that sounded foreign because back then Indians believed anything foreign sounding was premium. The name they picked was Monte Carlo, inspired by the famous Monaco district known for its casinos and luxury. A brand that would go on to dominate India's branded woolen segment with over 50% market shares and 471 stores across the country. Now, this is the pre-liberalized India that we are talking about. During that time, the Indian buyer would have only 3 choices for winter wear. First was your hand-knitted sweater, made by our dadis and nanis. Second was your imported, branded sweater. It used to be very expensive because of all the import duties, and it was something only the rich could afford. And the third was your local, unbranded sweater. It was affordable, but not of very high quality. Now, this was the time when the per capita income of Indians was still very low. In the market, there was a huge demand for good quality sweaters at affordable prices. And Monte Carlo knew that to be a mass brand, they could not have prices that were out of range for middle class people. And since they had the whole supply chain in-house, from sourcing the wool, spinning the yarn and actually making the product, they could easily ensure that the sweaters they made were of supreme quality. And I'm sure if you look through your house, you'll definitely find an old Monte Carlo sweater your dad probably owns. And he's been wearing it for the last 30 years and it's still perfectly in good condition. Because when you have entire control over the supply chain, you can also control the quality without affecting your margins. And this was exactly one of the key reasons behind its profitability. Apart from margins, 2 of the biggest reasons why brands fail in the fashion apparel industry are high return rates and the problem of dead stock. Here is the problem. Most brands design a collection, guess how much people will buy, and manufacture all of it upfront. And if that guess goes wrong, the unsold stock just sits in a warehouse. That is dead stock. On top of that, a big chunk of whatever doesn't sell comes right back as returns. In this industry, the return rate is usually around 25 to 30%. And I'm sure you've seen the result yourself. Those end of season sales with 50, 60, 70% off, that's mostly brands trying to clear out stock that nobody bought. Now, Monte Carlo solved this in a very simple way. Every year, before they produce anything, Monte Carlo holds what is called a buyer's show. Retailers from across the country come in, look at the entire upcoming collection and place their orders in advance. And only once those orders are locked in does Monte Carlo actually begin production. And this is exactly why Monte Carlo's return rate is around 15%, almost half of the industry average. Because at the end of the day, the whole model runs on one simple philosophy. The retailers carry the inventory. The franchisees fund the stores. And Monte Carlo keeps only what actually matters: the brand, the design, and the supply chain. Now, the third reason why Monte Carlo has lasted this long is something you don't usually notice because it works quietly in the background. It's distribution. Most brands are strong in just one place. They're either an offline brand or an online brand. Monte Carlo built both. Monte Carlo runs more than 500 exclusive brand outlet stores that sell only Monte Carlo. Add to that multi-brand outlets and other retailers, and Monte Carlo gets over 4,000 points of sale across the country. It also sells directly to its retailers with no distributor sitting in the middle. And this network isn't just in metro cities. Monte Carlo is present across tier 1, 2, 3 and even tier 4 towns almost equally. What makes this network special is how old it is. A lot of these retailer relationships go back decades to a time when Monte Carlo was one of the first brands to give a small shopkeeper a genuine branded product to sell. For many of them, Monte Carlo is part of why their own business grew. That trust is built over 40 years. And that kind of trust is very hard to build overnight. And Monte Carlo didn't stop at offline. Online, it does around 225 crores in sales, and e-commerce is actually its fastest growing vertical. Unlike a lot of brands, Monte Carlo runs its online business profitably at margins similar to offline channels. So whether it's an exclusive store in a small town, a multi-brand outlet in a city, or an app on your phone, Monte Carlo is everywhere in India. And that kind of deep, omni-channel reach is something that gets built slowly over decades. Here is the final piece. And that's the big reason why Monte Carlo is still relevant today. Winters in India are getting shorter and milder every year. And as the winters shrink, so does the demand for pure winter wear. A brand that only sold sweaters would slowly fade with the season. Monte Carlo saw this early. So it stopped depending on winter alone and expanded to all season categories, summer wear and home. Today, close to half of Monte Carlo's revenue comes from non-winter products. And it didn't stop there. Around the core brand, it built an entire portfolio. Monte Carlo Home does around 175 crores. Monte Carlo Footwear, launched more recently, is already at 20 crores. Rocket, its sport and fitness brand, is approaching 100 crores. And Cloak & Decker covers value menswear. So, Monte Carlo is no longer just a sweater brand. It's a year-round, multi-category business. And that's what keeps it growing even as winters get shorter. So when you put it all together, Monte Carlo's success isn't about one big flashy move. It's a series of quiet, disciplined choices. It owns its supply chain. So quality and margins stay in its own hands. And it sells before it produces. So it rarely gets stuck with dead stock. It built a distribution network so deep that it took decades to create. And it diversified early. So it's no longer tied to a single season. Together, these choices did one thing. They kept Monte Carlo from ever depending too heavily on outside money or any single trend. And that is the real reason a 42-year-old brand from Ludhiana is still standing, still independent, and still run by the same family that started it. In a world obsessed with growing fast, Monte Carlo patiently chose to build something that lasts. And that patience is exactly why it's still here. Let us know in the comment section which business you'd like to break down next, and I'll see you in the next one.